Meeting the electricity needs of one of America's fastest-growing cities isn't easy. Faced with the unprecedented increase in demand from AI, retiring power plants, and an expanding local population, San Antonio can't afford to wait years for new generation to come online. They need a way to grow capacity and improve grid reliability now. That's why Eolian, a nationwide leader in energy storage, is building one of the largest battery storage systems on the planet, right here in Bexar County. When completed, the Padua complex will add 400 megawatts of instantly dispatchable capacity to the grid. And with Padua 3, Eolian is delivering the longest duration storage ever built in ERCOT, proving that today's batteries are ready to deliver real capacity at scale. The Padua complex is more than a project. It's a proof point. It shows how batteries enhance reliability, keep costs affordable, and extend the lifespan of existing baseload power plants. Batteries make baseload better.
Joining us for a summit short talk on turning grid constraints into energy dominance, the strategic role of battery storage. Please welcome Founder and Chief Executive Officer for Eolian, Zubaty.
Hey everyone, just waiting for the slides to come up. So why is someone you've never heard of with a company you've probably never heard of in front of a room that doesn't have that many people right now talking about any of this? We are one of the largest buyers of batteries in the country. So we develop, own, and operate battery storage projects. We've spent $2.5 billion on batteries in the last, let's say, 2 to 3 years. We have another $6 billion to spend in the next 3 years. If you've tried to move anything into this country in the last 12 months with tariffs, with the threat of all sorts of things going on, it's been very difficult. In addition, batteries are being used already to enable large-scale load. We have a data center under construction at one of our battery sites today. We are also enabling and developing a large aluminum plant that has not been disclosed publicly until today that will ideally come online in 2031, which will be connected to a very large battery. The third thing is, a lot of people talked about this today and yesterday, how do we get anything done quickly? The answer is that with a lot of grid-scale batteries, we can move very quickly to actually use the grid we have. So when we talk about batteries, I just want to highlight, what does that even mean? This is a Tesla Megapack. You can see groups of 3 battery cells. Each one has a little string inverter at the top. This is basically a 20-foot container. There's a cooling system. I'll go back for a second. The other thing that's important to note, this unit, when strung together, has a 250 millisecond response time. So every 100 megawatts of these that we build is like a 777, and we can turn it on and off remotely in 250 milliseconds. Here's one of our units I happen to see going down the street in the Central Valley one day. That's what they look like for sense of scale. That's the intro. How are these going to be used now to enable energy dominance? The first thing, which is not always very popular to talk about, the baseload system needs to get backed up. Batteries are a way to do that. I will show you how. It bridges new transmission build. So a lot of the sessions have talked about how do we find a way to build transmission faster. We are not negating the need for transmission, but we're bridging to that new transmission. And by using storage in the right places, we're able to actually unlock a huge amount of trapped capacity that is sitting in the grid every single day. So the first point, how do we use this super highly flexible resource to back up power plants? Thermal power plants actually have very problematic seasonal maintenance cycles. This is ERCOT. This is a graph on the left. That's the number of megawatts on outage. And you can see each color. That's number of years. So you can see the last 4 years. We're in April. You can see that we're at about 30,000. Today is about 25,000 megawatts on outage. That's 40% of the thermal fleet. That is a big problem, guys. This is this year, zoomed in. You can see how we're, again, at about 30,000 megawatts. In case you're wondering, yes, in PJM, same problem. PJM outages peak at 70 gigawatts. That's almost 50% of the thermal fleet at any point in time in the spring and then the fall must go on outage. I'm not trying to knock baseload plants. They have to go on outage. We must keep the system stable when they do that. At the same time, load is not flat. It goes up and down every day. This shows you that on many days, you see up to a 40% movement in load, this swing. That means you can't just sit there and run consistently. This is busy, but what this shows is something called ancillary services. Many of you know what that is. It's basically a set of products that backs up the grid in real time. It's real-time reserves. On the left, this is for ERCOT. That shows that on average, this is the coldest day of the year. This is January 28th. There was about 10,000 megawatts that you must have backing the system up at all times. Now, what makes up these reserves today? In ERCOT, many hours now, it is 70% coming from battery storage. And what does that do? It actually pushes gas into the system. So by using batteries to back up the grid with instant response, we literally moved gas that was sitting doing nothing into the power markets. This is one of the ways that ERCOT has looked dramatically different over the last 2 years compared to the 2 years before that. Here's an example of ERCOT. This is from last week, April 24th. This is an example of what the load looks like kind of every day. The high here was 69 gigawatts. I want to say that yesterday, ERCOT hit 75 gigawatts. The peak load in summer of 2021 in ERCOT, the hottest day of the year, was 73 gigawatts. There is no shoulder season anymore. It gets hotter sooner, and we need capacity sooner, right in the middle of outage season. The net load is the capacity you need minus wind and solar. There's a 15 gigawatt ramp. How do we deal with that? 26 gigawatts are an outage. Here's how it was managed. The peak hour, 15% of the capacity on the grid was coming from energy storage in ERCOT. Now, this is important. This is not a mandate market. This was people investing tens of billions of dollars to solve this problem, anticipating that it would need to be solved. In addition to that, there was another 6 to 8 gigawatts throughout the day. So we're backing up the thermals. The second piece is we're bridging to new transmission. So this graphic proves that I did not use AI to make this. This is going to be one of the crappiest graphics you've ever seen. Let's say you've got a power plant and load. You've got a transmission path. You've got to get the power to them. Okay? Path 1, that looks nice. Problem is you need redundancy. So actually you need path 1 and you need path 2 because you actually have to have redundancy in case of emergency. So let's say more people move the city, more AI factories show up, your load's growing. You start to say, let's permit a new transmission line. Oops, that's not going to happen anymore. You could do that 30 years ago. You can't do that today as easily. It's going to take more time. This is what we call a flow gate. This is where the lines converge. You're going into your areas of load. You have to solve this problem. So what does battery storage do in this case? You can see that red graphic. Power is normally flowing. When you have two paths, they're both totally underutilized. Because the whole point is you need to be able to flow all the power into one path. So the system is completely wide open. You're charging the battery with excess electricity. Oh, a tree falls on it. Again, great graphic. You see that tree, big X, can't flow power. What do? Well, ultimately, you discharge from the battery because that path is blocked. This is how you create reliability and resilience right now, today, without needing to build the transmission. Now, we're not saying never build it. I hope it gets built. It might take 10 years, though, to build that path. And in this case, as you can see, I put it through mountains and houses because it's complicated. Eventually, you can get that next plant built. We're the bridge to that point. Now, let's look at some real examples. Pacific Northwest, you can see there are a number of dams that were built on the Columbia. There's actually about 34 gigawatts of dams in the Columbia Basin. They're flowing both to Seattle and Portland and down to California. But there's a problem. You have volcanoes in the way that block your ability to move all that power. So when you actually look at the transmission map, you can see in magenta, there's a pretty small number of corridors. These are critical. If a tree falls down, which happens, you have a big problem. So how do you get this, again, power all the way to the load pockets? This is what we did. We looked at Portland and we said, okay, there's a ring around Portland. We'll look at the two major entry points, one on the east side, one on the west side. So power flows in, it hits the ring of transmission, flows all the way around, and these 2 points are the critical nodes. That if you can store electricity at that point, you've created resilience. These things exist. We started planning this in 2018. We started working with the utility in 2022. This was constructed in 2024. This is 200 megawatts, 4 hours. The other side of town, 200 megawatts, a little more than 4 hours. The reason I point this out is these are already deployed. They are already creating resilience and reliability on the grid. Here's another example in case you fly into Salt Lake City. On the westernmost runway, as you're right about to land, you'll see a little group of white boxes. This is another battery storage project at a place called the Terminal Substation. It's a major, major substation. This is another view I took a few weeks ago. If you guys ever saw SNL, Jack Handy, to me this picture was deep thoughts, in case anyone is old enough to remember that. Here's another picture I took on spring break. This is what it's like to be one of my kids looking at every major substation in the world. The battery is behind him, but what I want to really highlight is the two transmission lines here, double circuit and single circuit. Now, a lot of transmission paths were built old school, single circuit years ago. Then you come in, as example here, this is a new double circuit. It's big, it can handle more power. But there's a catch. By the way, we talked a lot about China. This was a late addition. I want to show you what transmissions looks like in China. This is a double quadruple circuit in a single pathway. This is not NERC compliant, to be clear. And I really want to highlight that. I'll go back for 1 second. You see all the space between these lines. You need to have space between the lines so that in case one falls or the hurricane or tornado hits one, not a hurricane, tornado, the other one works. So that's China. We've talked about that. So let's take another example. This is another case where we have multiple lines. One is a single circuit. One's a double circuit. So you've got a double circuit and a single circuit. The problem with that system is if you lose the double circuit, the power has to flow in the single circuit. The tree falls, the power has to flow. That's a problem. It overloads the single circuit. So in effect, this system is basically fundamentally flawed. This is not theoretical. This is actually actual. This is the problem in San Antonio. So what did we do? We looked at the location where we could inject on the other side of the constraint and built it a power plant. And that's what's here. So that little video from before, this is 400 megawatt, 5-hour battery, almost 2 gigawatt hours, just finishing construction in San Antonio, specifically designed to solve this reliability problem. Just a little overhead. Just again, to keep this in context, this is 400 megawatts. This takes up about 20 acres. It's not a huge amount of space. So third point, how do we unlock gigawatts of wasted capacity on the grid? There's a study that came out from Tyler Norris at Duke last year. He's now at Google. I wouldn't say it was groundbreaking in the content. What I would say is it was groundbreaking in making a couple nice graphs that I'll show you. But first, very quick math. So first of all, I think you guys can do this, 24 hours, 4 hours, 8 hours, and 5%. These are critical numbers, but just the point is 5% of the year averages only 1 hour a day, 1.2 hours a day. So this was the graph that was published. The key thing to look at, this is a load duration curve of the transmission systems. So if you look at this, and you see my little lines popping up slowly, if you can solve 5% of the hours, you have 20% headroom on the system. If you can solve 33% of the hours, you have 35% headroom on the system. Now, thought of another way, solve 5%, which is 1.2 hours on average per day, and I know that's not the way it works, but you have a 20% headroom. This exists today. The grid is completely, chronically, almost criminally underutilized. There are a lot of reasons, which I won't go into now, including rate-based economics and the fact that the regulated utilities have absolutely no incentive to open that up. But I won't say any more right now. 95% of the time, the system is free. So how do we actually access this? So we heard a lot about Central Ohio today. New Albany is a suburb of Columbus, where incredible data center load growth has happened. This is 2020. You see a lot of farms, a lot of brown dirt. As you start to move through time, 2022, you start to see increasing data center activity. I'll show you two pictures side by side, 2024 and 2026. So at this point, you have Amazon, Google, Meta, and actually also Intel. Intel's chip fab, this is a 1.2 gigawatt load that's being built here. So this whole cluster of load, 4 to 5 gigawatts currently, but there's a problem. So we know what a flow gate is now. You've got power plants to the left, power plants to the right. You've got transmission network. You've got zero generation here. It hits this loop. It hits these substations. And guess what? You have a problem. So you have these points that if you can solve those points, you create a huge amount of additional capacity, especially if that little tree shows up yet again. So what are we trying to do here? Here's a zoomed in version. We have the flow gates. They're about a mile apart, just for a sense of scale. It's a 1,000-foot wide data center. There's a plot of land next to one of the substations. This is where we are now building a very large battery. This is going to be the largest battery ever built in PJM. It's going to be 400 megawatts. It's going to be 2.2 gigawatt hours. It's about 5.3 hours. This is under construction next to the largest substation that's serving basically the largest data center load in the country. It's unlocking that capacity. There are a couple of utilities in this area that are going to be frustrated by the fact that we're proving that storage actually unlocks a massive amount of deliverable capability. But we'll deal with that later. And that's where the battery will go. So summing up, we're backing up thermals, we're bridging the new transmission, and we're going to be showing and are showing that we're already adding new capacity. And I'm way over. Thank you.